Hey, it's Lemon. Welcome to the Backlogs. Hope you're doing well. A few years ago, I held a one-shot contest for Dark Souls 1. The rules were simple. Bring the health bar of every target on the list I created from 100% to 0% in a single button press. Multiple creators brought their A-game to the contest, and with their incredible ability and deep understanding of Dark Souls, they systematically eliminated target after target on the list. And while the contest itself was competitive, certain roadblocks brought this group of creators together in a way that recreated what it was like to play Dark Souls for the first time. That feeling of not knowing how to do something, but then having other members in the community swoop in with some arcane knowledge that pushed you into the victory screen. It was amazing to watch. But at the same time, there was some regret, because as the person running the contest, I wasn't able to participate. And after the dust had settled, and victors were named, I felt like I never could. After all, I had all the answers. What purpose would it serve for me to go through the target list myself? I'd just be standing on the shoulders of giants. Unless I did something new, something unique, something that hasn't been done, maybe ever, if a cursory YouTube search is to be believed. The contest relied on players having limited level ups, and a list of enemies and NPCs that would force them to carve a specific and careful path through the game. So today, we're going to ramp it up to maximum. Today, we're going to beat every single entity in Dark Souls 1 without leveling a single time in a single hit. Before we get started, this video took a lot of effort and time to make. Those of you who've watched the original one-shot contest probably already suspect why. So in order to support my family and the channel itself, if you wouldn't mind just giving me about 90 seconds of your time for 2 quick announcements, I'd greatly appreciate it. First off, as you can see on your screen, we've got a new plushie from Makeship. It's Melon, the anagram and antithesis of Lemon. He's always interrupting my videos, like right now, and causes me physical pain every time I animate him. But that's why we love him. And if you want to get one, there's a link in the description or pinned comment down below. Available for a limited time. And second, a quick thank you to today's video sponsor, Zenla's Zone Zero. For those that remember, we've actually played ZZZ before on the channel. And it's come a long way since then. Because today, Zenla's Zone Zero is announcing its 3.1 update. This update introduces things like a new home base, an entire new storyline, The Long Goodbye, and some powerful new characters, like Ramil, a first-generation Void Hunter. Mixing power and performance, the Void doesn't stand a chance when the Lumaflux light show starts. There's even a new extraction-style challenge mode that holds a substantial amount of story content and season rewards, and features exclusive character combat skills that make combat more satisfying. Must resist challenge content! And regardless of whether you're a new or returning player, there's no better time to jump in with Zenla's Zone Zero's highest reward package in its history. Play today and you'll get 1 free S-tier agent, 1 free S-tier W engine, 20 character signal search pulls, 10 Bang Boo signal search pulls, 1600 polychromes, swimsuit character model for Lucy, and a 2nd anniversary exclusive outfit, title, and name card. Haven't played in a while? Not a problem. Zenla's Zone Zero overhauled their onboarding process and give players the ability to skip ahead to new content while receiving an overview of the old. So if that sounds interesting to you, use my link in the description or pinned comment down below to download the game today and give Zenla's Zone Zero a try. Available now for free on PC, console, and mobile. Anyway, thanks for listening to all that. To show my appreciation, allow me to show you the wildest challenge run I've done for this game, and probably ever will do again. Let's begin. Because this is a Soul Level 1 run, the only class that we're allowed to be is the Pyromancer. And since we won't be leveling up, it's worth taking note of the stats we have at our disposal. 10 Vitality, 12 Attunement, 11 Endurance, 12 Strength, 18 if you two-hand weapons, 9 Dexterity, 12 Resistance, 10 Intelligence, and 8 Faith. Not much to work with there, huh? Well, it actually gets a bit worse once you put those numbers into practice. Considering this is a one-shot run, Vitality, Endurance, and Resistance won't matter much. But the rest of those numbers just severely limited what weapons and spells we have access to. And to make matters worse, because we have to one-shot every single enemy in the game, not just the original targets from the contest, we're going to run into even more brick walls than the original contestants did when trying to upgrade our weapons and unlock certain pieces of our equipment. But you know what they say, it always seems impossible until it is done. All we need to do is reach out and take it. So, first order of business, the Asylum Demon. For obvious reasons, there's no way to kill him in a single hit this early in the game. We don't even have a real weapon to our name. All we have is this broken sword. But in order to preserve the legitimacy of this challenge, this broken sword is the only thing we've got. So start swinging. Now, could we have taken the black firebombs to speed up the process? Maybe, but this run is going to be limping along as it is, and having the Master Key as my starting gift felt too important to pass up. So, here we are, swinging fruitlessly away at the Asylum Demon with a broken blade, praying for the moment that its health bar officially hits 0. And, after several minutes of painfully slow combat, it happens. At which point, we immediately quit out of the game, reload our save, and find ourselves once again outside the Asylum Demon boss fight, where to our relief, he is still alive. No enemies killed, no failed run. Which means we can run our happy little legs past the boss, grab an actual weapon that does more than 3 damage, and collect the first kill of the run, the Bow Hollow. Because this is a grueling endeavor, and because there's a lot of moving pieces, let's make it easier for everyone with a nice graphic. There we are, that's better. The top number will represent our overall progress towards killing every single entity in the game, and the bottom number will be how close we are to killing every entity in that particular area. So when I take an axe to this here Sword Hollow, there you go. Top number goes up an infinitesimal amount, while the area percentage goes up just a little bit more. Now the Asylum is a strange place, since it has 2 different iterations, so there's no way to 100% it until we come back. But at least we can clear every enemy outside of the boss while we're here. And because we quit out of the game when fighting the Asylum Demon, Oscar is kind enough not only to die on his own and give me a 0-shot kill, but also grant us the Big Pilgrim's Key despite the Asylum Demon still being alive. Farewell, sweet prince. I'll be back later to make sure your rest remains peaceful. But with the Big Pilgrim Key in hand, we have all the means to leave this place at our disposal. Time to make good our escape. And don't you worry, AD. I'll be seeing you later. And with that, our journey can properly begin. Time to figure out exactly what we're up against here. As anyone who's ever done an SL1 run can attest, our options are limited at best. Miracles are completely off the table due to our low faith, and the only damaging sorcery we have is Soul Arrow. Not exactly going to be much help there. In fact, the only magic we'll be able to use is our Pyromancy. And by God will we use it. But that won't be relevant until later, so let's turn our attention to what weapons we have instead. And the answer is, not much. Because of our low dexterity, entire weapon classes are just gone. And even some strength-focused weapons are non-starters as well. For example, you wouldn't think the Claymore would be a problem to wield, but nope, 10 dexterity requirement. Can't use it. But on a positive note, because our weapon selection is so limited, it's a lot easier to figure out the route we need to take to maximize our build potential. So we have that going for us at least. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, let's work our way around Firelink's Shrine. We kill the Sword Hollow and the Armored Hollow, make short work of the Battle Axe Hollow waiting for us up at the top of the stairs, and give the Firebomb Hollow a quick thwack in the back. Nice try, amigo. You gave it your all. And after a 2-handed jump attack to clear the rat in the aqueduct, that's all the enemies we can handle at this point in time. We'll need something a bit heavier if we're going to go up against the skeletons in the graveyard. So let's move forward into the Undead Burg. Now I know what you're thinking. We literally just killed Sword Hollows. Why is the number going up? Well, that's because Dark Souls has a nasty habit of making enemies slightly stronger when placed in new areas. You may not have noticed this yourself, because like a sane person, you were probably upgrading your weapon or swapping to bigger and better weapons as your run went on, but if you've ever had the same weapon from start to finish, you'll know that sometimes an enemy that took 1 shot to kill in the early game suddenly requires 2 or 3 when they appear in the later areas. Which means that each iteration of an enemy type has to be considered a brand new enemy for the sake of making sure that we do, in fact, kill every enemy in a single hit. But don't worry, we just unlocked the weapon that's going to make sure those increasing health bars don't matter. The Reinforced Club. And a Residence Key, because why not? Normally a somewhat mid-weapon choice, this club is actually going to be our bread and butter for most of the run. Which is a horrifying realization, if you think about it for too long. Which is why we're not going to. And after collecting some gold pine resin, which may or may not come in handy later, we plunging attack this crystal lizard and have cleared out all the enemies we can manage in the Undead Burg. Time to go on an adventure. With the Master Key in hand, we're able to make our way through Havel's Tower and escape into the Great Beyond, apparently. Escape into Darkroot Basin. There's nothing for us here, outside of a heavily defended Grasscrest shield, but considering this is a one-shot run, this was more for a trophy than actual utility. No, what we actually want is to run through Darkroot Basin to some new areas. Namely, the Valley of Drakes, where we can dodge our way past said drakes and grab the red Tearstone Ring, and the Undead Parish, where our buddy Andre is waiting for us. Boy, are you a sight for sore eyes. While he may not have any weapons for us, he does have Titanite Shards, which means our Reinforced Club goes from 97 base damage to 145, jumping about 50%. Time to see how well that works in practice. Yep, 219 damage from a simple jump attack, and over 300 damage if we go the extra mile and riposte an enemy. And these are armored hollows too, so they've got some defense. In fact, this damage is enough to even eliminate the Balder Knights, which is great, because they're probably one of the higher health enemies in this area. So, with our damage actually appropriate for this area, we make quick work of the enemies, either jump attacking or parry riposting our way through all of them in turn. But now for the big question, do we have enough for the harder enemies? Well, if this practice run here is to be believed, yeah, I think so. If we're in red Tearstone range, our damage jumps into the stratosphere, doing over 500 damage in a single attack. And that's just if we parry and riposte. If we go out of our way to do some crazier maneuvers, we can increase that damage even further. Enough to kill a Black Knight, perhaps? If we can, that would knock out some really big hitters from our list. Not quite. Wishful thinking, but we're gonna need a bit more damage for them. Plenty of damage to kill those rats below the bridge though, so we got that going for us. And after killing some helpless hollows, that's about all the enemies that we can kill in the Undead Parish. The only thing left to do is collect the mystery key, dodge past the Bereniki Knight, who has too much health, and grab the Firekeeper's soul, and give said soul to Anastasia. Don't ask me where I got it, just put it in the bottle. Well, the Undead Burg and Undead Parish are dead ends. What else can we do? Hey Tom, how are the kids? Baseball, huh? Well, we're not gonna get stronger without putting in the work. Time to visit Blighttown. We can kill the crag spiders here, which is good news, and it was always a safe bet that the mosquitoes were going on the list. Same is true of the blow dart snipers. They just don't have much health. But more importantly, there's several items down in Blighttown that can benefit our build. The first being Poison Mist, a pyromancy that causes poison. And the second and third items are dropped from these leeches, which I can thankfully kill in one hit. Was a bit worried about that one. These leeches drop green Titanite shards in bunches of 5, which is amazing, and large Titanite shards in bunches of 1, which is less so. And while we won't be able to utilize the large Titanite shards until we unlock the large Ember in the depths, we can utilize the green shards, because we have access to our boy Rickert in New Londo, who, so long as you have a +5 weapon, will offer to upgrade it into a magic version of that weapon. Now, are we well suited for a magic weapon? No, and we never will be, because we can't put points into intelligence. But a +5 magic weapon is better than a +5 normal weapon, by a heavy margin. For example, a +5 normal reinforced club, two-handed, does 183 damage. A +5 magic reinforced club, two-handed, does 153 physical damage and 162 magic damage on top of that. And while losing 30 physical damage is a bummer, it's worth noting that most of the early game enemies in the game don't have much, if any, magic defense, which means our damage essentially just doubled again. And doubling our damage is exactly what we're going to need to pick off a good chunk of these early game enemies. Oh boy, chunkies. You know those Black Knights we couldn't kill a minute or two ago? Well, they may have physical and fire defense out the wazoo, but magic defense they do not. Ooh, a blue chunk. Save that for later. In fact, this magic club of ours can beat its way through pretty much every other target in Darkroot Forest. Whether that's fake trees, giant frog salamander stingrays, gangly twin-headed lizards, or even the Stone Knights. Which is odd to me, considering they have magic greatswords. But hey, I'm not complaining. And with the greatest gift acquired, we can take our newfound strength elsewhere. Deeper into the trees, perhaps. Where, if we avoid the Forest Covenant by skirting along the left side of the woods, and then join their covenant so they'll leave us the hell alone, we can use the age-old technique of dine and dash to unlock this treasure chest, then lure the mushroom folks a bit further away so we can dart back in and collect a new upgrade item, the Enchanted Ember. With this Ember, we can upgrade our +5 magic weapon into an enchanted magic weapon. All it costs is blue Titanite, which is dropped by these blue crystal golems that I don't have enough damage to kill. Fuck. Well, that sucks, but these are the kind of unexpected roadblocks that make this challenge unique. Being forced to work around minor enemies and not just bosses really adds an extra layer of puzzle goodness to the formula, and I really appreciate that. Gives me the good brain tingles, you know? Anyway, with the skeletons of Firelink Shrine dead, we can begin pushing through the catacombs, where both the necromancers, scimitar skeletons, archer skeletons, and exploding skulls can all be added to the list in rapid succession. And after falling down a series of small cliffs, we now have access to the next upgrade path of the run. Our boy Vamos here will reluctantly turn any +5 weapon we have into a fire weapon. And since I bought a few extra reinforced clubs for just such the occasion, that's another element added to our collection. Now the fire enchantment is actually pretty interesting, because unlike magic, which is based off our intelligence, fire doesn't scale with any stats, which means both the physical and fire damage we do with our new weapon is better than the magic club. And when used against enemies that are strong against magic damage, but have no real defense against fire, well, the results speak for themselves. For the sake of argument, I could have let the Hydra in the area blast the golems down and stolen the loot, but now we can grab the blue Titanite chunks they drop with 0 guilt, which is the best kind of guilt. And with our newly acquired blue Titanite shards in hand, we can revisit Rickert and upgrade our +5 magic club to a +4 enchanted club, which isn't quite as strong as our fire club, but is damn close. Now, we won't be able to upgrade our enchanted club to +5 anytime soon, as it requires a blue Titanite slab to do so, and those can only be found or ground out in the late game. But at least now we have an answer to any enemies that are strong against physical or fire damage. And if we go out of our way once more and visit Sif's arena, we can sneak behind Artorias' grave and snatch the Hornet Ring, which boosts our critical damage by 30%. Which means that pretty much every NPC that we can reach at this point in time is no longer safe. Even monsters like Havel, who have incredible magic and physical defense, are no match for an RTSR Hornet Ring riposte. But for now, let's leave the NPCs alone to sweat in their boots. We've got the lower undead Berg to clear. With our range of +5 clubs in hand, there's really not much anything down here can do. It doesn't matter if it's the dogs, the hollows, or the thieves, they burn all the same. So, with no challenges in my way, I teach Griggs the difference between a push and a pull door, kill this one random archer hollow just chilling here, and meet our new best friend in this run, the female undead merchant. This heavenly creature gives us access to one of the best weapons in the game, poop. No, seriously, pockets full of poo are literally the best weapon we have access to right now, because not only does it act as a ranged weapon, but by throwing it at enemies, we have access to thousands of damage, as well as incredible cheese strats. For example, if we hug a couple dozen dung pies over the wall here, we can actually apply Toxic to the Capra Demon. And because dung pies do 0 damage on impact, the first couple dung pies don't count towards the one-shot rule. The only pie that counts is the one that triggers the toxic effect, at which point we have to sit and wait to see if the damage is enough to bring Capra from 100 to 0 in one single status trigger. Spoiler alert, it is. By a mile. Remember how I mentioned dung pies unlock thousands of damage for us? Well, that's because of how they work. For those of you who, understandably, avoid getting poo on your hands in a normal playthrough, allow me to explain. When you throw to poo-poo, both you and your target get toxic buildup. The Pyromancer armor actually has incredible poison defense, so the likelihood of you toxicking yourself before your target is pretty low. And once they do get toxic, they'll take about 7 points of damage every second for 10 minutes. Multiply 7 by 600 seconds, and you get 4,200 damage. Do you know how many bosses have more than 4,200 health? 8. GG easy no re, right? Wrong. Do not collect go. Do not pass $200. While a huge number of bosses have less than 4,200 health, a terribly small number of them can actually be toxic, which means this is not about to become a poop-only run. And in all honesty, thank God, because playing defense for 10 minutes every time I attempt a boss is not exactly my definition of fun. But it is a great solution to some of the bosses we'll be going up against, and I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the bosses we kill with it today will shock you. In fact, let's do that right now. I clear out the last few targets in the Undead Parish, killing the Baraniki Knight and the Channeler with a Fire Club jumping attack, then, against my better judgment, release Lautrec. Unfortunately, he's the only way to kill Anastasia in Firelink Shrine, as well as the only way to reach his 2 henchmen in Anne Orlando, so he gets to live. For now. But the same cannot be said of the gargoyles. And I've got just the weapon for the job. It's poop. The answer is poop. Now, could we have killed the gargoyles with our reinforced club? Absolutely. The first gargoyle only has 999 health, and that number is easily obtainable if we juice our build up to get there. But as the last runner in the marathon that is the one-shot contest, I wanted to show off some more unique ways of killing some targets. It just makes my own version of the run feel more special, you know? And with the gargoyles dead and gone, that's the first bell rung. Hell of a good start, if I do say so myself. And after removing the Black Knight sitting on top of the tower from our collection log, it's time for a new area to explore, the depths. Not a whole lot of challenge down here, so let's make it quick. We add the Sword Hollows, Torch Hollows, Undead Dogs, and Butchers to the Deathopedia. Yes, both of them. The Butcher that normally takes some damage for falling off her perch did me the service of staying up there until she died. And because we have a Fire Club, we can kill the Slimes, Giant Rats, Giant Rats, Giant Rats, and the Channeler. Not a bad haul. And for our efforts, we can collect the Large Ember to boost our physical club to +10, and save Laurentius, who will help upgrade my Pyromancy Flame to +15 and give me some more spells when the time is right. But before we leave this area, we've got 2 more targets to take care of. The first is the Basilisks, who might as well just not exist, and the second is Kirk, who, if we're being honest, is just so bad at his job. honestly, bud, you're never gonna get the fair lady's attention with sword skills like that. How'd you go and let me do that to you? But hey, plus 10 reinforced club and more pyromancies are nice, but why stop there? There's even more for us to collect back in Blighttown. We can now kill the club trolls, which means even more ways to collect Tapupu, and Milf Eater Mandrid here is also no threat, so long as you're not rocking a fire club. This madwoman stands in lava as a part-time job, so stick to magic damage. We've also got the multitudes of ghouls in this area. You've got your sword ghouls, dead body on a stick ghouls, and spear ghouls. Are they any different? How dare you? Of course they are. Probably. Maybe. I don't know. And you know what? Let's kill some fire dogs too while we're at it. God forbid these ghouls have companions. And to reward our bravery for going through Blighttown backwards, we can throw some dookie at this giant bug, and despite it being a literal parasite, it will in fact get toxic. Which means all we need to do is wait a little bit, and it'll get out of our way, unlocking the most powerful pyromancy in the game, Power Within. Speaking of powerful pyromancy, let's up that a bit, shall we? Laurentius teaches all sorts of spells, and some of them are halfway decent for this point in the game, but what we really want is that Pyromancy Flame plus 15. It takes a hell of a lot of souls to get it, but we'll need it. And just to round things out, let's visit Griggs and buy the Bellowing Dragoncrest ring as well. So, what does this mean for the build? Well, I'll be honest with you, the math is going to elude me at this point, due to it being multiplicative in nature, but suffice it to say that we've dramatically upped our damage potential. Power Within gives us an additional 50% damage when active, and the Dragoncrest ring increases pyromancy damage by another 20%. Combine that with our maxed out Pyroflame, and we're about to give our enemies some 4th degree burns. But why stop there? If you've got a plus 10 or higher Pyromancy Flame, Quelana appears in Blighttown. And so long as you've got the souls, she'll sell you spells like Great Fireball, Firestorm, and Great Combustion. Very powerful spells for our current build. But wait! There's more! We can even ascend our Pyromancy Flame, essentially upgrading it from plus 15 to plus 20. And just like that, we now have the best spell tool a Soul Level 1 build can ever hope to hold. Considering how much poo I've been flinging around, I decided it was time to upgrade my armor. I know, I forgot that was a thing too. Is it worth it? I mean, kind of. Every upgrade increases your defense by 10%. So at plus 6, the highest I can get at the moment, I just increased all of my defenses by 60%. That's actually amazing for moments where I don't need to be in red Tearstone range. So much downtime saved by not having to reset from silly mistakes. Also, can we talk about the damage we just output? Power Within plus Firestorm is an insane combo. But what happens when you add the red Tearstone into the mix? Oh, you insta-kill 4 NPCs at the same time. Needless to say, this spell is our ace in the hole for anything that doesn't resist fire, which is most things. How unfortunate. I won't be using it on every single enemy and target, because that's boring. It would mean that 90% of my footage would just be flame pillars all over the screen, but it is nice to know that the run just got a whole lot easier. And as someone who weirdly hasn't used a whole lot of pyromancy in the Dark Souls series, it's nice to know what I've been missing. Praise the sun, academics of the Firebomb Academy. Flame comes in many forms, and though it may be random and RNG heavy, it burns all the same. And after sending Solaire's soul to the sun as a sign of good faith, I thank Quelana for giving me the gift of unlimited damage. This woman has some weird AI. She's not aggressive after being toxic, but she does wander away from her initial position, and eventually just wistfully stares out across the swampy water. I don't know what to make of this, if I'm being honest. That's probably one of the more sad deaths I've witnessed in this game. Even Dark Souls jank is beautiful sometimes. And with her last breath, Quelana imparts on us the strongest DPS spell in the game for a Pyromancer, Fire Tempest. Basically just Firestorm on steroids, each flame pillar does 3.9 times your magic adjust stat, which is currently 230, or a whopping 897 damage. Or it would if I didn't also have Power Within, Red Tearstone Ring, and the Bellowing Dragoncrest Ring on as well. And with Shiva and his bodyguard dead in a single Fire Tempest, there's not much else the Forest Covenant can do against our might. Each of them go down in turn like a sack of potatoes, while the rest watch on in horror. One by one, they fall. One by one, they realize the futility of trying to fight back. It doesn't matter how much armor they have, how much health. In the end, I'm just toying with them, beating them all to death with a club that is only a fraction of my true power. If I wanted to, they could be dead with the flick of my flame-covered wrist. If I wanted to, it could be over for them in an instant. But I don't want to. I want to savor this, drag it out. Because in the back of my mind, while I relish one-shotting every single enemy in front of me, there's a silent whisper underneath the triumphant hum. And it's getting louder. Well, time to shove that feeling down into the depths of my soul. We've got some more targets to clear. With the Forest Covenant completely destroyed, there's only a few targets left inside the forest. We've got the great felines, who thought it would be funny to toy with me before I set them on fire, as well as the mushroom parents, who almost gave me as good as they got. Shame they have poor aim. Oh, and don't forget the kiddos. Gotta remember the kiddos when you're handing out one-shot damage. But now the real question. With as many moving parts as we have in our build, is it enough to take down a mid-game boss? The answer, shockingly, is a resounding yes. With as jumpy as Sif is, as long as you don't get hit while casting your spell, she'll probably try to leap through at least one pillar of Flame Tempest, and enemies caught in midair during an attack take an additional 40% damage. Fun fact, we could have killed Sif far sooner if we wanted to. The only thing you need to kill Sif in a single hit is, you guessed it, da poo-poo. God, I love how broken this game is sometimes. Stupid solutions like this just make me smile. But after showing love to both dogs and cats equally, we've only got one more enemy in Darkroot Garden to clear. And despite me getting the timing wrong, we can safely say that the Moonlight Butterfly does, indeed, float down. God, that's such a stupid meme. Why do we even... But with the garden cleared, there's only 3 more targets left in the basin. The first being the Hydra, which will go down with a single cast of Fire Temp... You know what? Let's skip the Hydra for now. We've got some grinding to do. Back to the Valley of Drakes, where we can one-shot the little blue ones and grind out dragon scales, hip hip hooray, and then into the Great Hollow, where we can kill the basilisks, baby mushrooms, and mushroom parents. Sure, it takes 6 minutes of waiting, but a kill's a kill. Onward to Ash Lake, where we flash fry the giant clams, and up the beach to the Stone Dragon, where we make our offering of scales to appease the ancient god. Behold, our new form. Lithe and scaly are we, and more importantly, physically stronger. Not only do we have dragon claws that do 400 base damage, but we now have a dragon roar that gives us a 35% boost to our physical damage. Oh hey, the Great Hollow is 100% complete. Nice. But do note that I said physical damage. The dragon roar, much to my dismay, does not boost your magical damage in any way. So while we can absolutely demolish enemies with our roaring claws, being a dragon won't help with any enemies that require pyromancy to burn off our list. And sadly, that's going to be quite a few, but not all of them. And because I know the hell that is coming with Quelaag, I decided to take a quick detour and kill some targets in New Londo, where I unlocked not 1, not 2, but 3 Jagged Ghost Blades. What the actual? Funnily enough, the Jagged Ghost Blade is one of the weapons we actually have the stats to use, but for obvious reasons, we're not even gonna bother. My claws are already better than it could ever— okay, what the fuck? And with the Knife Ghosts, Ghost Mothers, and Ingward killed in a single hit each, we can open the seal and release the Abyss, which I immediately put back in its place with an embarrassing parry and riposte. Oh, you thought? You actually thought? And with all the Dark Wraiths punched firmly in the dick, there's only 2 more minor targets hiding in New Londo. The Mass of Souls, and its exploding heads. And because we enjoy the finer things in life, like ridiculous methods to simple problems, I opted to go for a beefed up plunging attack, which not only kills the Mass of Souls, but also triggers the exploding head. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's a 2-for-1 deal down at the New Londo Wonder Emporium. Come get you a Jagged Ghost Blade before they're gone for good! In an effort to regain some of my sanity, I scooped up the Very Large Ember, which allows me, after some Dick Wraith grinding, to upgrade my physical reinforced club from plus 10 all the way to plus 15. Which, in retrospect, was a complete waste of time, since my Dragon Claws are still stronger. And now to one-shot Quelaag with just my fit— what is going on? Why? I just did this in my Dragon one-shot run. Where's my one-shot damage? I'll be completely honest, I have no idea what's going on. I've seen both myself and other runners kill Quelaag with a physical weapon hit. How come I can't get it to work anymore? Well, as dumb as it is, I think the reason is that you have to be just the right height to hit her 3 times on the way down with a plunging attack, which is incredibly hard to pull off. But then, I realized my mistake. I was going about this all wrong. Why was I trying to kill Quelaag like everyone else when the answer was in my pocket the whole time? Quelaag may not be able to be poisoned, but against all odds, she can be toxic. Aw, yeah, we're back, baby! It took almost 30 dung pies to get the proc, but 30 poops and 7-ish minutes of dodging flame attacks is a small price to pay in comparison to plunging attack farming. Personally, I was flabbergasted when this worked. Every single wiki says she's immune to poison and toxic, and yet, there she is. Toxic. Truly, I learned something new today. And after running back and forth across her arena, that's Quelaag dead in a single hit. Poop OP. Please never nerf. 2 bells rung, and Sen's Fortress unlocked. Things are getting serious. Because melee is more or less dead weight at this point in the run, I decided to join up with the Chaos Covenant instead, giving the fair lady 30 humanities in return for Chaos Fireball and Chaos Storm. as well as unlocking the Lost Isla shortcut for later. These two spells are very powerful, basically adding a lava pool to the original version of each spell. Only one problem with that though. They require 2 attunement slots to equip, and while I have 2 attunement slots, I only have 2 attunement slots, which means I can't equip Power Within to boost their damage. Still, it is worth noting that even without Power Within, Chaos Storm does immense damage, and the Lingering Lava Pool is a great way to ensure that anything that isn't killed in the initial blast is killed a second or two later. But you know what else might be fun? Getting egged. I let one of the aggressive Eggmen latch onto my face, or the relative area of my face anyhow, and after several minutes of head scratching, my poor smooth brain erupts into what can only be described as a melted Half-Life head crab. And after talking to Ingi and curing my affliction, we can now use Ingi's shop, and collect scrolls for both poison and toxic mist. Thanks for the knowledge, friend. I promise I'll look after the fair lady for you should anything ever happen to you and your kin. Like, I don't know, boiling to death in a pool of lava. Back to Firelink Shrine where... Oh. Well, I mean, this is what we wanted, number go up and all that, but I still get unreasonably disappointed whenever this happens in a run. Ah well, on to bigger and worse things. Hey Hydra, what'd you think about Chaos Storm? That's only about half of its health. Not exactly the damage we need. Okay, well, the DLC is still out, but what if we went backwards? Wait a minute, the DLC is in the past. Oh no, my clever script writing! Time to clear out a bit more of the Undead Asylum. That's the Torch Hollow's dead, and after a few tosses and several minutes of standing still, that's the Asylum Demon killed in a single hit as well. Bye-bye, Big Booty Bouncin'. You never really had a chance. Right, let's collect some points. The Sword Hollows, the Black Knights 1 and 2, Dear Oscar of Astora, the Archer Hollow, and both of the Armored Hollows upstairs all go down with little fight, which means that the only target left here is the Stray Demon. But after seeing how little damage my Chaos Storm does, I think we're gonna come back to this one. So instead, let's move on forward, into Sen's Fortress, where we can easily kill both the Snake Men and the Snake Women with a single attack. Fantastic news. And though it might have been overkill, I decided to deep fry the Mimic. Nuke it from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. And after making sure that Logan's questline can continue forward, that's the Baldur Knights scratched off my list, as well as the Bereniki Knight standing guard over nothing, and Prince Ricard, whose aim was as strong as his heart. That is to say, it wasn't. That just leaves the crossbow men up top, the 3 giants which are located around the map, and the Titanite demons down below in the muck. While I'm pretty sure the giants all had the same health, it is worth noting that there are 2 versions of Titanite demon here, and one has a bit more health than the other. Didn't help it much though. And after getting tired of hearing him groan and moan about not being able to remember how to count, I cooked the Crestfallen Merchant and followed that up with a very clean kill of the Iron Golem. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Sen's Fortress completely cleared. Halfway through the game now. Let's keep this momentum going. Making my way through Anor Londo, there isn't much that can put up a fight against our build. The golems are easy pickings, the mimics are nothing more than collateral damage, and the Firekeeper keeps more fire than she can handle. The Painting Guardians might as well not exist for as much health as they have, which means I can freely enter the painting and begin my rampage there as well. Archer Hollows? Dead. White Rats? Clobbered. Bloatheads? Killed with my Fire Club to keep the toxins at bay. Phalanx puts up no fight whatsoever. The Bone Wheels are easy enough so long as you remember where they're hiding and bring fire to the party, and that unique Bloathead hiding in the middle of the sewers goes down just like all the rest. Oh hello. In fact, the only enemy in this entire area that I was remotely concerned about was the Undead Dragon. These things have boatloads of health, and for a second there, it looked like Fire Tempest wasn't going to be enough. But I was worried for nothing. In fact, Fire Surge, technically one of the weaker pyromancies in the game, is more than enough to cook up some chicken in a single button press. It's no wonder this spell became the Bonfire's secret weapon later in the run. With as long as the cast is when you hold down the button, this spell can really do some damage so long as the enemy doesn't interrupt you. And while I'm going to leave Priscilla alone for now, there's one more target hidden in the painted world. Jeremiah. Oh look, he's toxic. Blooming purple moss, my guy. Maybe invest in that the next time you decide to invade a world. But with the painted world all but conquered in one go, it's back to Anor Londo, with eerily similar results. I don't know, gang. Something tells me we've officially reached the part of the video where we start skipping through content. Most of the enemies here have less health than the Guardian Golems we fought earlier, or they're just duplicates of one another, but with different weapon loadouts, like the Silver Knights. Which means the only threat left in Anor Londo is Ornstein and Smo, and I'm not sure I want to tackle that just yet. So instead, I decided to make a quick visit back to the catacombs. You know, rack up a few more points, get my confidence up. And honestly, visiting here did just that. I've always been a numbers-oriented person, despite being terrible at math more often than not, and seeing that individual area percentage slowly get closer and closer to complete just makes my inner mathematician smile. And after a single swing to remove Pinwheel's clone and a great fireball to Pinwheel himself, that's everything in the catacombs except for Vamos, dead and gone. You love to see it. You know what? Let's complete another area. Back to the Valley of Drakes, where I launch a fire tempest at the undead dragon. And while I can't quite tell exactly what happened, all I know is that there is nothing left alive in the valley, including me. In other news, it turns out that I misspoke when I said there was only Ornstein and Smo left in Orlando. With the power of the Dark Moon Seance Ring, we can access Gwyndolin. And while I would normally balk at killing them, since they offer us the power of the Dark Moon Blade, I can't cast any miracles in this run, which means Gwyndolin is completely useless to me this go around. Well, actually, that's not true. There's two things we get from this battle. First, a few percentage points closer to my goal, and second, if we visit Domhnall and Firelink Shrine, we can buy the Crown of the Dark Sun. This helmet is terrible in regards to defense, but it does boost my pyromancy damage by 10%. Yes please and thank you kindly. You know what, we're in the neighborhood. Let's see what kind of damage we can pump out to the Red Drake. Oh, it's immune to fire damage. Wait, really? Since when? Why didn't I know this? I feel like I should have known this. Well, damn, alright, come back to that problem later. How about a different dragon? The Gaping Dragon is still lurking around in the depths. Maybe a Chaos Storm will be enough to finish it off. Well, would you look at that? It was. But hold up, was that Power Within you just saw? Blasphemy! You can't have Power Within and Chaos Storm at the same time! Well actually, dear commenter who is currently writing an entire paragraph, you can. If you have the Dark Moon Seance Ring equipped, you suddenly have 3 spell slots instead of 2. And if you use Power Within, then unequip the ring to trade it out for one of your usual staples, it will remove the rightmost spell in your roster, which is in this case Power Within. And since that spell is already active, we're primed and ready to cast a fully loaded Chaos Storm. And that's just enough to net us the victory. Fun fact, if you're feeling lazy and don't want to swap rings, you can actually just cast Power Within before you sit at a bonfire, reattune your spells and swap Power Within with Chaos Storm, then just run to your target while Power Within is active and achieve the same result. Not so fun fact, even with Gwyndolin's headgear, the Hydra and Darkroot still isn't doable, which really sucks for me, because if we could kill the Hydra, we could free Dusk. And freeing Dusk means getting her headgear, which gives me 20% more magic damage instead of 10. But the real problem is that the Hydra just doesn't sit still long enough to take any damage. If you do too much damage to its head, it pops off, and the Hydra reels backwards, basically negating any chance of doing more damage to it with other fire pillars or lava pools, which means you've got to do all your damage in one go. And if a Power Within Fire Tempest isn't enough to finish the Hydra, then we're gonna have to look for an alternative solution. Oh, Ceaseless Discharge is dead by the way. Silly Goober fell off the cliff after I tickled his arm. The Taurus demons down below can't even hold their own against a Great Combustion, and neither can the Capra demons, which means there's nothing stopping me from putting on my flame retardant gear and collecting the Chaos Ember. I mean, aside from the lava, but that's besides the point. What matters is we got the Chaos Ember, and while we can't make use of it yet, we'll absolutely be keeping it in mind for later. And after smacking the demon statues around a bit, that's all the enemies we can clear in Lost Izalith for now. But we're not done racking up full clears just yet. Back to the Undead Asylum, where a souped-up Fire Tempest can kill a stray demon so long as 3 of the pillars connect, and after giving it some thought and realizing I was overthinking things, I realized that once again, the answer to my Hydra problem was sitting in my pocket, because the Hydra can in fact be toxic. I even found a nice little hidey hole to wait out the timer in. Just stand behind these rocks here, and the Hydra will seemingly never hit you. At least it never hit me in the 5+ minutes I was standing there. And with the Hydra dead, that's a ring I'll never use acquired, and the golden golem containing Dusk killed. Which means the only target left alive in this entire forest is Dusk herself. Now here's the trick of it. You have to welcome her help and summon her in order for her armor set to appear. Which means we can't just up and murder her after freeing her from the golden golem. And the next time we see her in the flesh will be after the Manus fight. And not so fun fact, she disappears from that arena forever if you just so happen to die after killing Manus, which is extremely likely when using a one-shot build. However, counterintuitively, despite being a summon, Dusk can be killed when you summon her into your world, which means no risk of losing her after the Manus fight, while still retaining the headgear for that sweet 20% spell damage boost. And yes, don't worry, you can still enter the DLC if she's dead. All the reward, none of the risk. But with Darkroot completely cleared and my build more or less maxed out, we cannot dilly nor dally any longer. It's time to head back to Orlando, where we've got several targets left to kill. The first are Lautrec and his band of merry men. His two compatriots go down like flies, more of an annoying distraction than anything else, and Lautrec himself is extremely weak to parries if you're familiar with his moveset. And as someone who kills him every single chance I get, I am very familiar. The giant golems guarding ONS are just as easy to kill as their smaller counterparts, even if they do have a bit more health. And with that done, it's finally time. Time to figure out how to kill two bosses with a Soul Level 1 build. It will take experimentation. This much I already know. The other runners were able to breeze past the dynamic duo, but the others had the luxury of more spell slots, more health, more weapons. I do not have such luxuries. I must find victory within the confines of my box. I must combine my skills, use all the knowledge I have, and somehow come out on top. And though I may fail again and again, I must persist. I must win. Yeah, so the answer was dung pies? Like, that's it. Just throw poop at them and run away for about 20 minutes, and you win. Okay, well, it's not quite that simple. There is a little bit of nonsense that happens when you do this. Don't get me wrong, both Ornstein and Smo can be toxic. And according to the wiki, they both have less than 4,200 health, even in their phase 2 forms. But apparently, someone didn't do their homework properly when it came to writing the wiki, because despite me sitting here for 10 minutes, someone isn't dead! Why? What? How did? Now, the solution to this problem is easy. Just kill Smo first, and let Ornstein be phase 2. Not only will you get the Leo ring after you win, which might be useful in some niche moment we haven't planned for, but Super Ornstein has less health than Super Smo, which means we're guaranteed a victory so long as we play Keep Away in phase 2. In regards to Super Smo not dying, I have two guesses. Either A, someone didn't write Smo's health down correctly, or B, Smo has some animations that act like iframes, and Toxic didn't do damage during those animations, resulting in him having just enough health to stay alive at the end of the 10-minute timer. Feel free to let me know what you think down in the comments. Personally, I'm leaning towards option B because all three wikis state that Super Smo has 4,093 health. But all three of them were wrong about Quelaag as well, so who even knows at this point? All I know is that Ornstein and Smo are dead, Guinevere is now even hotter than gamers thought she was before, and after bashing in all the skulls of the Darkmoon Blades who try to defend her honor, that's every target in Anor Londo, outside of the giant blacksmith, dead and gone. I say hello to Siegmeyer as he makes his way down to Blighttown, place the Lord Vessel at the altar for a free light show, then head on down to the Tomb of Giants to kill a bunch of undead. Boy howdy, can't wait. Hey Patches, where's my reward for killing all the clerics at the same time? Nothing? Alright then, rip Patches I guess. Thankfully, our pyromancy is powerful enough to kill all the giant skeletons down here, regardless of whether they stand on 2 legs or 4, and the Black Knight is just as easy as it's ever been. Ow. I also make sure to stop and say hello to Paladin Leroy, who appreciates the gesture so much that he decided to give me all of his worldly possessions, namely Grant and Sanctus. Now, I can't actually use these things, seeing as I'm a faithless heathen that doesn't even know how to fold his hands in prayer, but that won't stop me from using these tools at a later date. For now, let's just focus on finishing off the last enemies in the tomb. Being very familiar with the club scene by now, my pole mastery is on point, and these false pinwheels are just as weak and pathetic as the original. Which leaves us with 2 final targets. This wee baby skeleton, who unsurprisingly takes a club to the face about as well as you'd expect, and our good pal Nito, friend to all and supporter of his local food pantry, where he donates his Saturdays to— oh wait, he's dead. Well, 1 Lord Soul down, 3 more to go. Back to the Demon Ruins, where Kirk 2.0 is waiting for us, albeit with the same results as last time, the doof, and then a slightly more difficult encounter, the Demon Fire Sage. Because of its massive health pool, we need a few things to work out in our favor. First off, we have to have both Power Within and Chaos Storm active, which means using the Darkmoon Seance Ring trick we talked about earlier. And second, we need the Demon Fire Sage to either fly or jump backwards in the middle of our attack, so that we get that sweet 40% instability damage. But now for something completely different. We've been plowing through bosses left and right with our pyromancy, but what if a boss was immune to fire damage? Oh no, what's a man to do? Oh, would you look at that, the Centipede Demon can be toxic. Now, before anyone panics, don't worry. After unsuccessfully playing Keep Away from the Centipede Demon, I realized that I almost missed a target, because if you hit the Centipede Demon's arm, it'll fall off, turning into an enemy. An enemy that gives you the orange charred ring if you defeat it. Thankfully, the Centipede Demon's arm has very little health, so our plus 15 reinforced club is enough to knock it out of the fight. And after using a Homeward Bone and equipping the Charred and Darkwood Grain Ring to help me play Keep Away more effectively, we restart and retoxic the Centipede Demon, then just run from one end of the arena to the other and watch as the demon plods its way around the lava, slowly dying the entire time. and after nearly 10 minutes of running in circles, it's over. It's not much, but it's honest work. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the hardest target in the entire game so far, the dragon butts. They stand out in the lava, which means you either have to lure them to land or forfeit one of your rings. Their attack patterns are weirdly fast and random, and there's something weird going on with their hitboxes, because sometimes your attacks hit, and other times they're nothing more than a signal flare alerting the dragon butts to your location. And maddeningly, even when you do hit them, they have just enough health to survive your attack, crushing you immediately afterwards as a reward for your efforts. And no, they can't be poo-pooed. I tried that several times and never once saw any results. In the end, the solution was a bit simpler than I realized. I just equipped the Bellowing Dragoncrest ring, used Power Within, and cast a Fire Tempest at their feet. Turns out, 2 pillars is enough to bring one down. But with that ordeal out of the way, it's time to finish Lost Izalith. The Chaos Eaters are nothing to worry about, as a great fireball can take them out with ease, and a few violent bonks to the back of the head is enough to take out the Daughter of Chaos if you can manage to run past her and do a Hornet Ring backstab. Kirk 3.0 isn't even worth mentioning, I don't know why I even bother, and the Bed of Chaos is already a shitty boss, and therefore can't be killed with Toxic. A pity. Ah well, 2 Lord Souls collected, 2 more to go. But before we move on, let's wrap up the last of the Lost Izalith targets, so we never have to come back. We used the Lost Izalith shortcut to unveil all the chaos bugs in the tunnel, including the slightly stronger one that holds the Sunlight Maggot helmet, kill a random Titanite lizard, because of course there's one here, and despite it being the strongest one in the game, use a souped up Chaos Storm to kill the last remaining Titanite demon. And with that, that's Lost Izalith complete. Did you know? The chaos bugs have secondary mouths that they use when they latch onto your face. Thanks, I hate it. Also, if you go a bit further into Lost Izalith where Siegmeyer sometimes meets his end, there's more Chaos Eaters lurking about the place, some of which respawn, and all of which have a chance to drop red Titanite chunks or even slabs. Remember that Chaos Ember we collected from the lava earlier? Well, with this little grinding spot now unlocked, I think it's time we brought that Ember to Vamos, don't you? Behold, the Chaos Reinforced Club +5. Doesn't look much better than what we were working with, right? Well, get up to 10 soft humanity, and bam. Suddenly you're doing 67 more damage. Not exactly game breaking, but sometimes every little bit counts. And with pork chops served up and ready to go, it's time to clear the Duke's archives. Crystal soldiers are crushed, crystal archers are smashed to smithereens, blue crystal golems are broken just like the pendants they drop, and the crystal general is beheaded. Cut off the head of the snake, and the body will die. Whether that body be a small Titanite lizard or a much larger serpentine one, it matters not. Nothing in the archives can withstand the one-shot build. Pisakas with over 1000 health? Child's play. Serpent mages with 4 arms and 4 arms? Get that weak-ass pun out of here. And if you think for a minute that I'm gonna stand here and watch you dance, you've got another thing coming. Hell, I even disrespected the Mimic by burping in its face, and it was so offended that it straight up died. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm kind of out of ways to say that I hit a thing, and it died. Don't get me wrong, I kept it interesting for myself, occasionally mixing up my spells a bit and almost begging the game to prove that I couldn't kill a target. But Dark Souls has more or less submitted at this point. It doesn't matter if it's a minor enemy, a mini-boss, or an NPC. Dead is dead, and there's no coming back once I've killed you. But it's not much longer now. Only a few more targets to go. If we can just keep this up for a few more areas, we'll have it done. We'll officially be able to say that every single enemy in all of Dark Souls can be killed in a single hit at level 1. Finally, the little voice in the back of my skull can stop whispering. Finally, I can put the one-shot contest to rest. I can move on. I can look forward instead of back. I can... Where... Did I pass out? How did I get here? And more importantly, what is that for?
Let me out! Please, God, let me out!
The DLC. The final push, outside of a few loose ends we left back in the base game, this section is both the least worrying and most worrying part of the run. There's a few oddities we have to account for, like Elizabeth being dead because we killed Dusk ahead of time, but outside of that bit of temporal dissimilitude, there's not much else to say about the DLC enemies themselves. They fall just as easily as the ones in the base game, unable to withstand the heat. A single button press, the only thing dictating whether they are alive or dead. And even the bosses, giants in their own right, fall ridiculously fast, usually taking less than 5 attempts in total. The residents of Ulasil, despite having more eyes than most, are very slow to see their fate rushing towards them. We've done it. We've created the apex predator. There's nothing that can withstand the force that it brings, its presence sucking up all the oxygen in the room to fuel the fire that it spews up from the earth. It won't be much longer now. The sprites and spirits of my enemies linger about the place, whispering something that I can't understand, or don't care to. Whispers that bring me to a white wall of fog. The whispers are louder here, almost fervent. They want me to go through the doorway. No, not yet. There's still much to be done. Several targets on my list of names that I haven't yet crossed off. I can't enter the fog wall. Not now. We can still improve. We can still do more. In a world where one hit is all that separates us from death, why worry if our health bar is cut in half? Let the power of the gods we cannot name and the prayers we do not know keep us alive. Our power within at full strength, while the shred of health that remains teeters back and forth, pulled between life and death. Concern for safety is a hindrance, not a virtue. Not for us. Not now. As is any semblance of alliances or pacts kept. Friends have been reduced to points on a board. Allies, nothing but pawns to be played. The meek, the mild-mannered, the just, the dead. All of them. Dead. Some of them fight back a bit harder than the others, testing my patience or my material limits. But in the end, all they've done is slow down the process. Crushed beneath the wheel. Little more than a footnote. A burn mark at the bottom of a series of loose pages. Illegible, unintelligible, and unread. The whispers get louder. With every point I collect, every percentage point increase, the whispers get louder. I tell myself that there's still time. There's still much more to go. The fog wall can wait. I get to choose. I get to decide. Not the whispers. Me. Mine. My own! The whispers don't argue. They don't even acknowledge the outburst. But they're still there. They're still fucking there. And as I get closer and closer to my goal, the whispers start to get louder again. Almost like a static. A static that speaks my name. And with the finish line drawing ever nearer, there's only a few targets left to hold them back. The Four Kings. A boss with an impossibly high health bar, and yet easily crumpled by the power of Fire Surge and some clever placement. My own bloodstain marks the battlefield, tells me where to aim and where to stand. The kings fall. The whispers rejoice. The Knights of Gwyn, placed throughout the kiln of the first flame, guardians of their master, and protectors of the throne. Nothing more than stepping stones. The whispers rebound. Rickert, the blacksmith, trapped inside a cell of his own making. Impossible to hit with pyromancies, unable to be poisoned or burned, immune to my normal methods. The whispers pause, but only for a moment. A spear, long enough to hit him, combined with power within, a +3 dragon roar, and a tearstone red with blood, it's almost enough. Almost, but not quite. But it always seems impossible before it is done. And with only milliseconds to spare, my dragon roar lasts just long enough to use a strong attack, pushing Rickert over the edge. The whispers exclaim. And with the last of the minor targets removed from my list, only he remains. The father of the abyss. The dark that looks back. The mountain of madness itself. The whispers that have eaten my mind and soul for the last 2 years. Manus. Let this be our battleground. With gods whose names I do not know as my witness, I will bring you to your end. It's over. Hundreds of attempts, hours upon hours of footage, one single success amongst the pile. My penance is complete. And with one final burst of energy, I force what little willpower I have left into Gwyn's arena, and using the terrain to my advantage, convince him to throw himself into the fire. And that's it. All of Dark Souls 1. Every boss, every enemy, every NPC, killed in a single hit at soul level 1. I don't think I can come back from this. Not only do I never want to see Manus again, but I don't think there's any way to play this game in a more interesting way. Outside of completing a few series that we're in the middle of still, I think that's it for Dark Souls 1. Thank you for watching. In case it wasn't obvious, this video was a bit of a journey for me. A test of willpower, skill, and knowledge, all wrapped up into one. And I feel like I passed the test. And now, finally, it's time to apply my knowledge elsewhere. What does that look like? I've got some ideas. But I've got a bad habit of making promises that I can't keep in a timely manner, so let's just wait and see where life takes us. And until then, take care of yourselves, be good to one another, and I'll see you all again soon.